I'm in so deep and I barely know how to play. Ah. Professor X at it best. There comes a time in every man's life where he must take a stand for the truth, the people, and the movement. There has not been a movement where the leader has not suffered for the cause. Fahrenheit Hour. First Degree The D.E. 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 Fahrenheit Hour. FAHradio.com. Superior of Fahrenheit Schlumpage. Along with OG Fahrenheit Perspective. You feels alright. You done waited a long time for this. I'm gonna start you off right there.
Okay.
If you done made it on the Fahrenheit Hour tonight with First Degree The D.E, you done slipped in on something real nice, something that you've been waiting a decade or two to find out. And you came to the motherfucking Fahrenheit Hour, and this is where we get you learned it. We got Black Market Records CEO Cedric Singleton in the building. Now, you've always wondered, how did the Sacktown blow up this way? We about to find out. Ced, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm excited to finally get your story out to the people. You know, the reason is we're writing a story on the history of Sacramento rap, and you are the climax of that.
Okay.
You and what you was doing has never been duplicated. So tell us how it all started.
Where you want to start at? You want to start at where I first got into business, or you want to start where the Brotha Lynch X-rated stuff all started?
I want to start from, you're from Ohio, right?
Yeah, I'm from Columbus, Ohio.
Getting off the plane in Sacramento.
I'm getting off the bus.
Oh, oh wow. All right, tell us about it.
Well, I came to Sacramento originally to play basketball at Sacramento State University. And so that's what originally brought me here to Sacramento. And I never left. And so I always wanted to be in the entertainment business. And so, when I got an opportunity to manage a couple guys that I had met in San Francisco as rappers, that's where my music business my music career actually started as a manager.
Wow.
And then I evolved into doing the production because we couldn't find anybody to do the music. And the first official album that I was a part of, I produced a guy from Oak Park here in Sacramento named Homicide.
Yes.
And in the process of doing that, I began to host a local video show called Sacktown Rap.
Yes.
You remember Sacktown Rap?
Of course I do, man.
Yeah, I was the host for about a year, I think it was, with Jackie Moore.
Yeah.
So while hosting that show, I actually met Brotha Lynch and X-Rated at a party that was going on, and we were actually there interviewing, I think it was MC Breed that night. But I met Brotha Lynch at that party, and I had a studio in my house, and he said that he wanted to come by and talk about an artist that he had, a friend of his, which turned out to be X-Rated.
Wow.
So a few days later, he showed up at my house, and we worked out an understanding that, we would do a record together. And the first record that we did would be the Psychoactive album. And this is like 1992, maybe, I'm not sure the exact month, but somewhere in the early part of 1992.
Okay.
And so a few days later, X-Rated came over, and he needed one song, so I produced the last song on that album, and we finished the album up, we went and got it mixed, and a few days later, I'm watching TV, and I see somebody had got killed not far from my house.
Damn.
And I didn't know that there was a connection for X-Rated in this, but X-Rated the next day came to my house and told me that he was going to have to go get out of town. Something had happened. I didn't have any idea what it was. And so he signed a contract and he left town. And so I think it was 2 days later, I'm watching TV again, and I see where they caught one of the killers of one of the killers in Phoenix on their way to the same place X-Rated said that he was going.
Damn.
And I said, I put 2 and 2 together. I said, he said he was going to this place.
Damn.
I said, no. Then about, I think a couple days later, he called me and said they caught me. I said, where'd they catch you at? He said, Phoenix, Arizona. I said, that was you? And so, and that's, and from there, we started, my relationship with X-Rated was kind of, it was brief in the time that he was free, but from there our relationship grew a lot stronger, because when he finally got, transferred to Sacramento, he said, come visit me. And everybody else is scared. People they don't want to come visit me. So I said, okay, I'll come see you. He said, tell him that you're my dad. Okay, so I went up there and lied. He said, okay, I'm his father. So I sat down, talked to him. And our relationship from that point on for the next probably 10 years was really, really tight.
Damn. So that was right next to your house, huh? Did you know?
It was not right next to my house. The crime happened maybe a mile and a half from my house.
Damn. Did you know the lady?
No, I didn't know the lady, but some of the guys that were working with me, Leslie, Dez, and a couple other guys, they were. I didn't start Black Market Records by myself. There were other people involved in the beginning of the company, and one of the guys that was working with us knew the family really good.
Damn.
And so I was kind of conflicted when I realized the magnitude of the things that had happened.
Yeah.
And so he said, you should go talk to Patricia Harris's husband. He wants to talk to you. So I went to the house where she had got killed, and I sat down and I talked to Mr. Harris. And Mr. Harris he said that you should put the music out. He said, because when he was younger, he was a part of the Black Panther movement. And he said that the freedom of speech, the right to the freedom of speech is too valuable of a right for me to say you can't put this record out. And he said, you should put it out. He said, because what you're doing in this community, as far as being a businessman, all those things, you are helping other guys see that they can do these types of things too. And so when he gave me his blessing, there's nothing that anyone else could say to me about whether or not I should put the record out.
Dang, that's right. Dang, that's powerful. Dang. So then you put the record out.
And put the record out, and then the news media got a hold of a couple lyrics that he had in the first song, on the first song on the album, where he says, I'm kicking down doors, I'm killing mamas, daddies, nephews, and I'm sparing you. And so he had that lyric, and they were kind of similar to what had happened, so the media jumped all over as though it was something that he had predestined to do.
Damn.
But, to tell you the truth, he was speaking in terms of that was what crack does to people. It kicks down doors, it destroys everything that you love, and the only thing that it spares is you. And so he was speaking in the form of crack. Damn. And so, X-Rated spent 4 years in the Sacramento County Jail awaiting his trial. And so, first thing, while he was there, he called me. We were constantly talking. He said, we should do an album. We should do an album from here. And I said, how? And so I got to thinking about, I said, well, what I could do, so I started rigging my little studio up to record his vocals. And so what I did, I took the old school phone where you had to screw the microphone on and the earpiece. So I rigged up my things. And so he was able to get 2 telephones. He could listen to the music that I played in one ear, and he would rap into the other phone. So he would get everybody on the floor in the jail. Jail's normally a really noisy place, but they were quiet down so he could record the music. And that was the making of Exorcist.
Damn.
And so it took us a very long time to get it done like that. I think maybe a couple of years, but all of that was through through more of the effort and the will of X-Rated than even myself.
Damn.
Second album that we put out after Psychoactive. I don't know if you want to go through the discography like that, man. There's a lot of albums.
I do. I want to go through not only the discography, but the work that you were putting in behind it, because people don't understand. They get fascinated with these rappers and whatnot, but like Tupac was putting out albums before Death Row. But it was the Death Row movement that got him cracking. I always tell people that, and that's what it was with Lynch too, is what you were doing in that office and on the road. But we'll talk about that later after the discography. So second album.
Okay. Second album was 24D. The X-Rated Psychoactive was an album due to all of the publicity surrounding the record. It was always on. It was on TV constantly. We sold a lot of records.
Damn.
And so we sold, I'm not sure, I can't quite remember the numbers, but we sold a lot of records. And then Brotha Lynch brought in 24D, which was an album that him and X-Rated kind of been working on about the same time. Or Lynch was the producer. Lynch produced most of the tracks for the Psychoactive album. I only produced one. Lynch produced all the other ones. I think X-Rated might have produced a couple too.
All right.
And then he came in the door with 24D, and so I said, "Wow, this is a hot album." And then I had signed. Radio was signed at that point. Brotha Lynch was not signed, so with 24D, me and Brotha Lynch signed a deal. And when I listened to the demo, I thought it was really hot, and so I said, "Okay, let's move forward with this." But it was just an EP, which is the 24D album. So we put that album out, and so when we put that album out, the 24D, are you there?
Yeah, it just charted on Billboard.
It had charted on Billboard somewhere around 87, and I thought that was an incredible thing. That of all the music that, all of the music that was in the country, all of the big stuff, we have an album that we're selling, and I'm pushing this stuff on the road like this, and we're on Billboard at number 87. And so that was just a real a momentum boost for us, and morale push. So it went from there. Next album, we came with Season of the Sickness. Brotha Lynch we spent about $5,000 recording this album. Brotha Lynch did a lot of this stuff. And when I first heard 24D, I wasn't all that really, not 24D, but Season of the Sickness. My first listen to music is not always that good. So I'll sit it down and I'll listen to it again later. And so we were in the process of manufacturing the album. And I had manufactured 30,000 CDs, and we had our CDs were being manufactured in a plant in Indianapolis, Indiana. Okay. And the plant in Indiana, somebody had listened to the music and they refused to manufacture the cassette. And so that kind of left me, because I set a release date, and now I would not be able to make the release date because I didn't have the cassette. Damn. And they said, and I couldn't find another place that would make the cassette.
Damn.
And so at the time we were at the Magic Show in Las Vegas, and I drove from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. I drove to Priority, and I went up in there to visit Priority, my first time ever doing this, and I got a chance to sit down with a guy named Dave Weiner.
Yeah.
Dave Weiner heard the music. He started calling people into the office and stuff, and a couple of days later he said, "Can you meet Mark Cerami in Phoenix, Arizona?" So I flew to Phoenix, Arizona, sat down to some kind of music conference thing. I sat down with Mark Cerami, one of the owners of Priority Records, and we cut a deal. And so a few days later we got contracts going, and when we did the deal with Priority. But X-Rated stuff, I never brought his stuff over to Priority. The first reason was that probably I thought that Priority did not really want to be involved in that controversy of X-Rated. So we continued to distribute X-Rated stuff on the independent level, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise later when we started to have problems with Priority.
And what kind of problem?
Well, what Priority would do, they would, try to influence the artist, Brotha Lynch, because they saw the potential. Season of the Sickness came out on Priority, and it debuted at number 26 on Billboard, and which was much better than 24 Deep, and we were impressed that to be at 26 with Season of the Sickness. But the biggest week of Season of the Sickness was, I think, he only sold like 9,000 records in his biggest week on Season of the Sickness. But the thing that happened with Season of the Sickness, it sold at 9,000, at 8,000, at 7,000 for years, every week. It never slowed down, really. It just kept grinding out. More people heard it. More people liked it. It probably were 5 years that the record sold no less than 4,000 records a week. We started, me and Lynch got into some things where, really honestly, I made a mistake about mechanical royalties. I didn't understand. There's a lot of people, I guess a lot of people thought that, I knew what I knew about the music business. What I know now, I knew then. I didn't know then. So a lot of the things I had to learn. So me and Lynch got into a dispute about mechanical royalties. I didn't even understand mechanical royalties. And so I asked an attorney that I had, what is mechanical royalty? He said that's something that the attorney advised me wrong. And so I, in turn, had told Lynch what the attorney had told me. And so, but the information that I had got from the attorney was actually bad information. And it turned out to be, but in retrospect, she was wrong and I was wrong, because I ended up paying Lynch mechanical royalties for 24 Deep. The problem, what mechanical royalties are, is that when an artist sells a record, he's owed publishing for the sale of the record, which is a statutory rate for music that is created. The problem with 24 Deep, I didn't learn this till later, many years later, but that whole album was samples. And so the entire album was samples, and so when you sample another person's music, the music is owned by the other person. All of the 100% of the royalties go to that other person. He sampled Roger Troutman, he sampled all these other guys. There was no original music.
I didn't know that.
So you use the person's music, so that person owns 100%. So Lynch should not have been paid anything as far as mechanical royalties for the sampled music.
Yeah.
And so I ended up paying him. Later on, it all turned out to be that I had paid him too much money. And so what I had thought was actually a mistake. But me and Lynch ended up getting past that. But I think that's where the mistrust and everything began. But we got past that. So I made a deal with Priority that you will pay Lynch directly. And so there would never be, I didn't want that kind of accusation thrown for me. So I said, can you pay him, you account to him for all of the records that you sell? Yeah. And you pay him directly. So he could never say, I didn't pay him.
Yeah.
And so that's how we proceeded. They would, he would receive his royalty statements, his publishing stuff for Season of the Sickness. We got to load it. Priority had, I gave Lynch in advance, I think it was, the total dollar figure with the new contract was somewhere around $250,000, and so it was part of it was for some back payments, and some of it was of an advance, some of it was for the studio time, and this was in reference to the Loaded album.
Yeah, I was there when you gave him that. That was at the studio.
So he was. So I was looking forward to moving forward. But the problem came when Priority were trying to destroy the relationship between me and Lynch by doing things like they would send a check to Lynch, and now before they would send a check, they would at least allow me to see what they were paying him. So if there was any money that I had loaned Lynch or had paid for something, that they would deduct that money from the check that was going to Lynch. Okay. This was my understanding with Priority. But one time, Priority just sent the check, I think it was like $185,000 to Lynch. And Lynch, I had given Lynch somewhere in I had advanced him for this or given him this And so he was supposed to have repaid the money back to me. I think it was 50 or 60,000.
Damn.
And so they sent the check directly to him, and then they had to call. They called him back and said, Stead is tripping.
Oh.
So you're gonna have to send that check back to us, or whatever they did.
Damn.
I said, well, you shouldn't have that. That's just disrespectful that you would do it like that.
Damn. Especially knowing.
And so they were talking to Lynch about maybe if you were here on Priority Records, we could be doing all of these things that Stead is not doing for you.
Damn.
And so about that time, I made the decision to leave Priority, but not just for that, because the deal that I cut with Priority to do the Loaded album was a deal I communicated this with Lynch. I said, this is an album, the Loaded album is an album that Black Market is not going to make a lot of money because of the deal that I cut with Priority. You're going to get paid off of this album. We won't make anything based on the change in the percentages that I did with Priority, which I wasn't really tripping about it because I figured that we would make it up on whatever album came after that.
Yeah.
So this is an album where you'll be able to pocket a lot of money and we'll just squeak by. And so I made the decision, based on them calling Lynch and trying to, they're just totally disrespectful stuff.
Yeah.
And so I made the decision to leave Priority. And so we left Priority, probably not in the most politically correct manner, but we left. And so we spent another year, and during that time there was very little income coming in because not all of our money, but a majority of our money was coming from Priority. But fortunately, the X-Rated we had dropped Exorcist in that same time. And so the independent money allowed us to survive for a year or so until we did another deal with Tommy Boy. Tommy Boy would have been a much better situation for Brotha Lynch and for Black Market Records for many reasons. They were prepared to do all of the things that Priority were not doing. Like Priority didn't do any promotions, they didn't do any radio work, anything. All of that was upon Black Market to do. And we really did not have the financial ability to do the things that we needed to do to promote Lynch in the way that we could.
So let me ask you this. So during the area you're talking about, Priority was, if people don't remember, just to remind you, you're in the Fahrenheit Hour said single Black Market. But Priority was running up and down the West Coast trying to get all the independent labels, and Black Market was the first. But
right.
They weren't even pushing it. I thought at least
they were being. What happened was Priority's market share in the gangster rap had started to diminish by the plethora of independent labels in Northern California.
Wow.
No Limit, Black Market, JT the Biggest Figure, a lot of independent labels. So I was the first one in the door. And so they were talking to me, so I told them about Master P. I had distributed Master P's first album. So based on that, but the difference was, since I was the guinea pig, when we signed our deal at Priority, we got no advance. Master P came in a year later or so, and he got a $500,000, $600,000 advance. So he was able to do the things that we were not able to do. JT the Biggest Figure came in after us. He got the same type of $600,000 advance. And he was able to do promotionally the type of things that we just were not in a financial position to do. The things that we did with hard work. We weren't able to pay a lot of stuff. And more so based on the talent of Brotha Lynch, we were able to survive.
Well,
in those early days.
But your mentality was so aggressive. But the one thing I want to document for the people, when the Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, Eminem Up in Smoke tour hit, they went across the country. I ended up hitting about 4 spots myself in the parking lot promoting back at the beginning of Fahrenheit Records. One of the times I was in San Jose and I saw 30 people picketing the Brotha Lynch, and it was one of the grandest things I had ever seen from Sacramento. So you and then talking to you at the B40 event, you say you hit the whole tour.
Yeah, we followed that tour. We hit like maybe 22 cities. We got the tour schedule, and we were in that town before they got there. So when the tour company trucks were coming, we had already plastered the place. We had plastered it with posters, the drive-in. So, people began to end the tour. They thought that we were a part of the tour.
Brilliant.
It was funny, man. We hit San Jose, that San Jose show, and it came to Sacramento the next day. Then a couple of days we were in Portland. Then we were at Key in Seattle, and then from there to Boise, Idaho, to Kansas City. I bought a 15-passenger van, and I piled my crew in a van, and we hit the road. And when we ran out of supplies on the road, I think we ran out of supplies. We had the gigantic 36 by 24 posters, and we were promoting EBK4. We had bullhorns, stickers. We were spray painting stuff. We were like crazy. We were crazy people on that road, man. We had fun doing it too. And so we hit these 2 shows in Detroit, Cleveland, Buffalo, Toronto, Canada, Chicago, Minneapolis, Milwaukee. We hit all of it. We inside the show, Phoenix, Arizona, Las Vegas, Los Angeles. Man, we were like relentless on the show. First week out, we were, I think the first week out on that record, we were number 4 on Billboard.
Damn.
And that was EBK4. But, and the thing is that there were other people on the road attempting to do the same things that we were doing, but we were just doing it better.
So how did you make EBK4? Because that's when it gone sour, right?
It had already went sour. After I had did the deal with Tommy Boy. Tommy Boy, again, I say they were prepared to do everything. They had radio staff in New York City. They were prepared to do radio and everything. And I also made a deal with Tommy Boy that you could pay. I want you to pay Lynch again directly, so there's never a confusion with him getting his money. They gave Samuel $150,000 to do the record. I went and broke Lynch off some money just for him waiting. Not that I owed him anything, but I just broke him off some money. And so they had started working on the album. The executive from Tommy Boy flew to Sacramento 2 or 3 times saying, "What's taking so long?"
Damn.
And then what happened was Lynch called them and said that he's not going to turn in the album. And I just didn't understand that. I couldn't understand why. So that ended up killing the deal that we had at Tommy. But they were prepared to do a movie. They were prepared to do all of these things to promote Brotha Lynch. And so at that crucial time, he decides that he doesn't want to do a deal because other people are spitting in his ear saying, "Oh,
God." Now, this is where the third part of the series, the fall of Sacramento rap, will start with this very moment, because the next segment that we're right now is about the rise. When you were on top and the AWOL and Death Trap, we were on top. And now that I'm hearing your story, it's a lot of your legwork that put us on top. And in combination with Lynch's talent, like you're saying, it was just the perfect combination. But that moment you just described is where everything started going downhill.
Well, because at that point, Lynch had a deal. Lynch signed a deal. My problem with Lynch, you sign a deal, and if you didn't want to deal with me, you should just turn in your records to me, and you would be free to go. Exactly like X-Rated did. X-Rated signed a contract. And when he was done with his album, he said, I want to go do my own record label. Yeah, I've honored my commitment to you. And so, fine. And
let me just tell you, on this side, when I would hear Lynch complain, one time I was just like, I was there when you signed this contract for Ced. It was like 5 more years. I was sitting right there. He did one, and then he decided, you can't do that. And you gave him all this money. You can't just do shit like that. The people listen to raps and like raps, but then when you learn about what's really going on in the bass, it's ridiculous. It was just a breach.
Yeah, he didn't want to. He didn't want to. He didn't want to deal with black market. I don't. And I, without a doubt. I mean, I guess at that point, I didn't know the reason was, but I know the reason was he was saying that he wasn't getting paid. I know that was a lie, and so it had to be some other motivation. Then after all of this arguing and fighting, he leaves black market. I was thinking that if he wanted to go start his own label, then I might understand that. But he leaves black market and signs with another record company.
Who?
I think it was AEI or something in.
IDN.
In Florida, and then he signs with Strange, and he never does his own label. I never understood that. X-Rated is smart enough to do his own label.
That's a whole nother thing. Is the reason? This is what it's going to be. Part 2 is the rise, and it's all about people were coming together. Even Dalvin pulled BG and me and all that, but we were still welcome in the black market office. I remember being with you and Dalvin, and you teaching me a lesson I use to this day, which was when you're doing an album cover or any kind of advertisement, any word that's not money words is clutter. And I tell people that all the time. But back then, people were coming together, and as soon as Lynch, who doesn't know how to run a business, decided he could do it, it's like ego. Same with Sibo and them. The ego sunk in. Lynch thought he was bigger than Beta, and they just left black market. And that's when the fall happened. Everybody started going their own directions. And when the rise happened, everyone was working together. And that's what I've learned in this process.
Yeah, that was an incredible time. Let me go back to another part in the rise of Sacramento. I had lived in a house. I probably had maybe 8, 9 different guys living in my house at the time. It was a real, true live crash pad. This is before I had the office and all that. But in my house at that time, man, I thought you probably couldn't name many artists that did not come through my house. From DRS, Sibo, Young Me, Brotha Lynch, X-Rated, Mr. Doctor, Marvelous. I mean, just all of many of the artists that were really chopper, all the people that were trying to get going in the music business, because I had a little studio there. Man, that environment was just a magical place to be. Man, I must have lived like that for about a year. But shortly after that, people used to come to my house. I didn't even know he rapped. But I was doing a beat one time. I was doing a beat, and he started fucking. I want that beat. I said, "You rapping?" So he was always quiet when he came by there. So he must have bust. I was like, "Man, where'd that come from?"
So then, after season came Doc, and this is my favorite black market album. Is Set Riff and Block Style.
Yeah, that was a trying time also from a standpoint that when we were making the album, Mr. Doctor got shot.
Damn.
And he almost died, but we were not far from finishing the album. I think I was actually in Phoenix, Arizona, doing the meeting with Mark Cerami when he got shot, because I remember hearing about it on the phone. And so we were in the middle of finishing that album up, and so but he ended up surviving, and we went on to finish the album, and the album was an incredible album. That album, I mean from X-Rated, Psychoactive, the first 3-4 albums that we put out were all winners. And so I think we had, but the environment of hip hop at that time was a little different, and so people were a little more open minded. But we were able to, put together some really good music, and all of those first 6 or 7 albums that we put out all sold very well. I remember Dalvin and Death Trap, and so Dalvin was just a cool guy. I never looked at Dalvin like as competition. I guess as other people would, but he was just a cool dude. And I was more in line. My thinking was more like if we are able to elevate this region, then it's better for everybody.
Wait, stop right there. Stop right there. The people need to hear that again. Please say that again.
Yeah, I was thinking like if you're able to bring attention to your city, everybody benefits.
Man.
Because at that time, I mean, we were doing interviews with Source Magazine. Why? Because there was a something happening in the city of Sacramento, from SIBO to Brotha Lynch to X-Rated to Death Trap to AWOL to all of these different people. There was something happening. Even Freddie Smith, to this day, Freddie is like a little brother to me. It just, it never was any animosity or jealousy or anything like that. A couple of times, Freddie would go to jail, he would call me, and I would do what I could to help him in whatever the situation it is that he needed. It never was anything where, there was any animosity or jealousy the way I would think the way people think it was. It was never that.
It wouldn't be like that now. That's part of the problem. Wow. Because you guys were starting something that was new too. That's another thing. When you guys, audience, when you're listening to Said Talk, this was an era when people weren't doing this. They were doing it for the first time, like pioneering the Sac genre. That's the craziest part. Man, but you were traveling on the road too. Man, that's what it was. I love it. No, I mean, a lot of people look at that stuff like it was work. Man, it was, for me, it was just a ball to be able to create something out of nothing, to be able to compete with on the road too, promoting were Priority, all of the bigger labels, all of the people. We were no longer on Priority at this time, but they were all of the rap a lot, but we were the ones. If there was if there was a competition in promotion, Black Market won. Damn.
Every city.
Oh, damn. Because you went there and did it yourself.
And then to come back and see the type of records that we were able to push out the door, it was all worth it.
And then you benefit, not only you, but just the whole region benefited off the work you did, man. So with Mr. Doc, what happened with him and the whole trial thing?
Well, what happened with Mr. Doctor, I think after Set Trippin' Block Style came out, Mr. Doctor was one of those cats that was in these streets about it. It was no playing, no faking with that cat. And so I think somebody had shot his house up. And as I hear the story, somebody had shot his house up. He was living in a part of West Sacramento, which was not his neighborhood. He was living actually with his girl, I believe it was. And so some guys came out from his neighborhood and shot those guys up. Somebody ended up getting killed. And so everybody went to jail. What I do know is that Mr. Doctor was the last guy to get arrested. So a lot of times, people saying that he was a snitch and all that. I don't really know the true side of that, but I know that he was the last guy to get arrested. And so that is what it is. And so he spent maybe 2 years in jail fighting this case. And so the entire time that he was in jail, I took care of his family because he had a couple of kids. And he had his girl from Black Market. We made sure that they didn't have anything. Paid him rent, gave him money for food the entire time that he was in jail. So when he was able to get past that situation, he came out and he did his second album. It was Bombay.
And what happened was a boy got shot riding a bike or something like that. And so tell us about Bombay.
So Bombay was an album where Mr. Doctor began to move away from the gang so much. It wasn't as gangsterish as Set Trippin' Block Style was. There was some more, I guess, an attempt to move away from it because I think Mr. Doctor had matured a little bit in the time that he had spent in prison, in jail, and so it didn't have the same edge
that Set Trippin' Block Style had. And so it did not do as well. It did okay, but it didn't do as well as Set Trippin' Block Style. But then he began to get the reputation of a snitch. And so a lot of people were saying that he was a snitch and they didn't want to deal with him. They didn't want to touch him. Him and Brotha Lynch stopped dealing with one another. And so, and that pretty much ruined whatever it is that Mr. Doctor had going on at the time.
I remember Lynch saying it was because he wanted to get paid from the beats on that album.
I think Brotha Lynch was more afraid of the type of person that Mr. Doctor was. I don't know. Maybe you might know more than what I did. But I know that he could have got paid for the beats. I mean, Mr. Doctor was a up and coming artist. Why not?
That's what Beta says about Loaded is getting paid for the beats. That's his whole thing.
I had a conversation, a little back and forth with Funk Beta about that, and I sent him. He said I never made any money. I sent him the canceled checks.
Canceled checks.
I sent him the canceled check and the contract that he signed and the canceled check, and he called me back and apologized. He said I forgot about that, Sid.
Damn.
I did get paid.
Well, you said, did Loaded go platinum or the other one? Season
Number 6 went platinum.
Man, that means 1 million units.
Yeah, it took 18 years, but it's platinum.
Damn. And you know what I'm learning is, people put out new music and stuff, but when I get emails from Fahrenheit Radio from around the world and stuff, they want to know about the history. That has more value than new music. Like I'm talking. Go ahead.
I started writing a book a few weeks ago, and I'm going to detail all of the things, the stories, the different stories about Black Market. There's a lot of things that we couldn't fit everything into an hour interview or anything like that. It's going to really take a book. I mean, because just the X-rated story alone is a book.
Yeah.
The Mr. Doctor's situation is a book. Even I distributed the Big Lurch album. That's another story.
Is that the dude who bit somebody?
Yeah, he chewed the girl's lungs. He cut her chest open and chewed her lungs up.
What is up with all this stuff?
He was on PCP, and so he ain't the first guy to do that on PCP. But Big Lurch is. I put that out in about 2002, I think it was 2002, 2003. But it also did very well.
Damn. It's a lot of stories. Like I was listening to what you're saying. It's not a book; it's a series. Because you didn't mention the Brotha Lynch, but of course that's a book. X-rated is a whole volume. You got about 5 or 6. And you know what? I would love to help you write that as far as what the people are curious of. Because you probably, you got all of them in the stories in your head. But I could help tell you what they want to know of those stories, Because
I would need the help on that, writing that book. Because I sat down, I think I started writing the book, and the first day I just wrote the first paragraph.
Yeah.
And I was like, where do I go from here?
Man, but I know what I would want to know. Like, just me personally. Because when you were doing the season and, I was there, but I was in the background. I knew B, and B, introduced me to Dalvin, and I remember when you were finishing up season. But I know what you've done for this region. I could step back and look at how our whole region has benefited from your legwork. And there's lots of stories that I personally would want to know. That's why this is an honor. I really appreciate this. And I know that people want to know. Because all they hear is flipping shit in Lynch songs, and that ain't the truth. That's the furthest from the truth. If you're getting your information from a Lynch song, you are the furthest from the truth that you can possibly get.
So I just think about the stories. I remember There's so many stories. So I mean, at one time I was on the Lisa. She used to have a talk show on television. Do you remember that?
I do.
Lisa Gibson, and some guy in Colorado had killed all of his roommates in college, and he was listening to Rope to the Brain when he did it. And then, so they were trying to blame the music for people that, for that guy, trying to blame the music for the killing. And so me and Lynch both went to the Lisa Gibson show, and we were on the show. Man, there's just so many different stories. Not the emails, but the mail I used to get about Brotha Lynch, about X-Rated. It was just an incredible volume of mail.
Do you have that Lisa appearance on like VHS?
I don't have it. I think you would have to. If I have to get it from them, the Best of Black Market. You know, the intro for it's called the drama. That is a lot of excerpts from that show.
Okay. So then you went out to put out during the fall, like when everything was starting to come apart and folks were not working together anymore. You were still able to put out Lynch albums.
This is how I did that. Lynch would, instead of Lynch would go and sell his music to whoever.
Oh God!
And so all I did was go and buy the music that he sold to them.
Oh.
And so after a while, I compiled maybe 30 or 40 different tracks.
Damn.
And so that's how the Best of Brotha Lynch was, just a collection of his better songs. The appearances were the songs that he had appeared on other people's albums, like Master P and all those other people. So that's what those were. So we kept his name and reputation going, and he did better on those albums than he did on the albums that he has had lately coming out from Strange and all the other albums.
Oh, okay. See, and then that leads us to the serious fall, Strange.
Right. Because people think I had just experienced probably a 12-year lawsuit with Lynch, but Lynch, it wasn't that Lynch had sued me. I sued Lynch. Okay. People get that thing twisted.
Yeah.
Because of what he did to the Tommy Boy deal.
Yeah.
Yet no justification for doing that.
Damn.
I think that was that. I think as far as if Brotha Lynch, if his career had a turning point, that was his turning point. His decision to do that, where he was at a point where he could have catapulted to a whole nother level, or you can do what you did and never reach the potential, never realize your potential,
and then eventually become Tech Nine's fuckboy.
Yeah, just I don't know, man. I don't understand. I am still a fan of Lynch, but I don't know why we were able to sell more records. Maybe it was the time, but he went from $1 million on Season of the Sickness. He was 500,000 on 24 Deep, 400,000 on Loaded, close to 200,000 on the Best of Brotha Lynch. For selling 18,000 albums. I don't understand it.
It goes back to what I was saying, people working together and it being true and it being real. Man, that's Lynch catering to juggalos, whatever the fuck they call themselves. That is not real. Mm-hmm. And it's not true. It's not true. So, but we got a few minutes. I would like you to, once you give a child a spanking, you got to heal them. So what could we do to start the process? You are the number one person to ask this question. What can we do to start the process of moving up the hill again?
I think we're already going in that direction. I think that one of the problems with the West Coast, the general problem with the West Coast, it's kind of like deregulation for me. There were a lot of artists thinking that they could run record labels, and some maybe have the talent, but more so than not, they could not run record labels. You had Mac Dre, who did an excellent job. But Mac Dre got started in this, you forgot about Mac Dre, but Mac Dre is not from Sacramento, but he was based here in Sacramento. He got started about the same time he got started. But the only thing that delayed Mac Dre is that he went to prison for the bank robbery.
Yeah. He was living in Sac when that happened, or just like sometimes?
He was in Vallejo when that first part happened, but when he got the Sears Entertainment, all that stuff is Sacramento based.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right, that's in the climax part 2.
Yeah. So, but it's just the organization. I think Black Market was probably, of the labels, it was probably the best organized.
Definitely.
I mean, from top to bottom. And so I think just that organization, everybody thinks that they can be a record label. I don't think that's true, because there are some different skills and some different disciplines and just a different mentality that goes into running a business and being an artist. There are very few people that can do both well.
I totally agree.
I think Master P was the exception to the rule. But Master P was a guy who would not sleep for 3-4 days.
Damn.
He had a motor that was incredible and a mind that was incredible. And so there's not a lot of people that can do that, but a lot of artists in Sacramento, Northern California as a whole, a lot of people believe that they could be their own record label, and with that came the decline in music in Sacramento. If you look at the artists that were able to achieve the greatest levels of success, those were artists that were on labels.
Damn.
Like, for example, if you take a SIBO, AWOL they were able to put out 3, 4, 5 SIBO out. It was a consistent machinery that was building both the artist and the label. With Black Market, 7 albums by Brotha Lynch, 6 albums by X-Rated, 3 albums by Mr. Doctor, 2 albums Triple Beam, and to get that consistent grind, because in consistently following the same stream, you begin to know who your fans are. The retail stores know exactly what to expect and where to get it. And so it's a familiarity that comes with that old school machinery. And so I said, when the machinery comes back to Sacramento and it is married again with the artist and they are able to grow together, it's going to happen. I think we're at that point now. There's some young guys here in Sacramento, Pharaoh, I call him Pharaoh, everybody call him Pharaoh. There are a lot of young guys coming up here that will shock your mind with the talent that they have. And so that's where we are.
Are you ready to do the legwork that you described?
I'm ready to get it going again. There was a time when I was kind of disenchanted with the music business, and I traveled the world. I was doing some humanitarian stuff in Africa. I went to Haiti, Brazil, Philippines. I visited now 60 countries. And the thing that I took away from it was the despair that I saw, and it actually, the first time I went to South Africa, it changed my entire perspective of money, the poverty that I saw. It was an incredible change. It just totally changed me, the things that I saw. The things that we take for granted. Not having clean water, something as simple and basic as having clean water and shoes. And so I spent a couple of years doing that, and I will continue to do that. But now my hunger and the creative impulse, the desire to work, to create something from nothing has returned. And it took a while to find the artist, but I have that group of guys now.
Damn.
Not only they have the talent, but have the right attitude. And work ethic.
And you're gonna hit the streets again.
Yeah, we're gonna hit the streets. But the whole industry has changed. I think a lot of people are afraid of the streets because everybody depends on the internet. The internet is a great tool, but it's only one of the tools in your toolbox.
And if you rely on that tool, you look stupid if you're just doing that tool.
Yeah, if you're just doing the same thing everybody else is doing. Ain't nobody. If you're just in the same lane with everybody else, you know, how do you distinguish yourself?
I believe if you have that fire again, and with your know-how and your experience, because the grassroots always works. If you did the same thing, it would work the same.
Right.
And the
it needs
region
to
would
be
be
with
on
the
the
right artist. That type of work. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, in the music business, it all boils down to talent. As a record company, as a promoter, all I'm able to do is point the attention at an artist.
Yeah.
I can bring the people to you. Now you have to deliver as an artist.
Yeah. All right, well, people, this has been the Fahrenheit Hour. You just got your mind stimulated. What more can you ask for? You just learned the truth. We got Ced Sing, the #1 rap entrepreneur in our region of all time. I want to thank you, Ced, for being on the show and everything you've done for the young and upcoming artists in our region. You got anything else for the people?
I don't know, man. Just I love Sacramento. I love the music scene. I love this art form. I love creating something out of nothing. I love everything that I did with Brotha Lynch. Even though I have beef with Brotha Lynch, I really have. It's hard for me to say something bad about Brotha Lynch because without him, Black Market would not have been able to do a lot of the things that it did.
Okay.
At the end of the day, even at the end of the day, Brotha Lynch's life is better, and so is mine.
Yeah.
Now, it might not have been a beautiful thing, but it is what it is. And so there's a lot of credit that goes to X-Rated, Brotha Lynch. It's not just me, because again, I say at Black Market, it was not just me there working. I may have been the boss, but there were a lot of people there who worked hard to bring this city up, to make this music happen, to make this scene a vibrant scene. From the people that did our magazines, the internet stuff, to the posters, to all the different ideals that we had. It was a team effort at Black Market, and I cannot take all the credit.
All right. Thank you, Ced.
All right, D, anytime.
Man, keep in touch and keep me. Oh, one more thing. Last thing to people. You got a movie you're working on.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Occupied is a horror film. It's gonna be our first horror film. We did another movie, but it wasn't a horror film. This is based on the true story of Morris Solomon, a serial killer here in Sacramento that lived in Oak Park. Sacramento has kind of I don't know, must be something in the water, but they had maybe three different people here in Sacramento burying people in their yards.
Yeah.
Dorothea Puentes is probably the most famous. And a couple of years before her was a guy in Oak Park, a handyman named Morris Solomon. And so we're doing a film based on the crimes that he committed called Occupied.
Okay. There you got it. I said you a legend, man. Keep in touch.
All right, bro. Thanks a lot.
So.
First Degree The D.E. Fahrenheit Hour. First Degree The D.E. Fahrenheit Hour. First Degree The D.E. Fahrenheit Hour. First Degree The D.E.